Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a brand new mega episode of What's New with ME. I am your host, Ali Mehdaoui, and this is the show where the news moves so quickly that by the time you finish arguing about one headline, the internet has already created 12 conspiracy theories, 3 reaction videos, and a commemorative t-shirt. Today, we have a lot to discuss. President Donald Trump says additional military strikes against Iran are on hold, but Iran apparently did not receive the same peace talk calendar invitation. Oil prices are falling, Wall Street is celebrating, and American drivers are staring at gas station signs asking one simple question: when does any of this become cheaper for me? Massive wildfires are devastating parts of Washington state. China is escalating the global artificial intelligence race with newer and cheaper AI models. A powerful earthquake has shaken Japan and triggered tsunami warnings. RFK Jr. is urging parents to vaccinate their children amid a major measles outbreak. Dr. Anthony Fauci appeared before Congress and invoked the Fifth Amendment more than 100 times. And a massive migrant crossing from Morocco into Spanish-controlled territory of Ceuta has created a humanitarian emergency, a border security crisis, and serious questions about Morocco's relationship with Spain, the United States, and Israel. And yes, after all of that, Spider-Man has returned to save the world, or at the very least, save movie theaters. So grab your coffee, secure your Wi-Fi, and politely ask the global economy to remain calm for approximately 30 minutes. My name is Ali Mehdaoui, and this is What's New with ME. Let's get into it.
You got this, man.
Segment 1. Trump, Iran, and the Strait of Hormuz. Let's begin with the story driving politics: oil prices, financial markets, and international anxiety. The escalating conflict between the United States and Iran. President Trump says he has postponed another round of planned military strikes against Iran while his administration explores the possibility of negotiations. According to Trump, discussions could help de-escalate the conflict and address the crisis surrounding the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most strategically important shipping routes in the world. Iran, however, while it has disputed the suggestion that formal negotiations are already underway, that is slightly concerning. Normally, successful peace talks require at least 2 participating parties. Otherwise, it's less of a negotiation and more of an aggressively optimistic group chat. Trump says he decided against immediately ordering additional strikes after consulting leaders from several Gulf nations. Those leaders have strong reasons to want the situation stabilized. The Strait of Hormuz is a critical route to the transportation of oil and natural gas. Continued attacks, disruptions, or closures could affect global energy supplies and push prices significantly higher. This means that a conflict thousands of miles away can eventually appear on a gas station sign down the street from your house. That is globalization. The world may be geographically enormous, but the oil market can transform an international crisis into a local expense before you finish filling the tank. Iran, meanwhile, appears to be pursuing its own strategy. Tehran has been applying pressure through shipping disruptions and regional military threats, while maintaining that it remains committed to protecting its own sovereignty and economic interests. In a simpler language, the United States says, let's negotiate. Iran says, we are not negotiating. The financial market says, good enough for us. But this is not only a story about what Trump says or what Iran denies. It is also a story about leverage. See, the United States possesses enormous military and economic power. Iran possesses strategic geography, regional relationships, military capabilities, and the ability to disrupt energy markets. Neither side want to appear weak, but either side can control every consequence if the conflict expands. That is why negotiations matter. Even when the two countries cannot agree or whether those negotiations are actually happening. And that brings us directly to the economic impact. Segment 2. Oil prices fall, but will gas prices follow? Following President Trump's announcements, global oil prices dropped sharply. Brent crude fell by more than 5%, while West Texas immediate also experienced a significant decline. The stock markets responded positively. The Dow Jones Industrial Average climbed as investors welcomed the possibility that a wider conflict and the resultant disruption to the global energy supplies might be avoided. This is an important reminder that financial markets do not necessarily wait for a peace agreement. Sometimes all they need is the possibility of a future meeting about potentially discussing an eventual peace agreement. Wall Street loves certainty, man. But apparently, vague optimism will also do in an emergency. Now, here is the question that is affecting everyday Americans. If oil prices are falling, will gasoline prices fall too? Possibly, but usually not immediately. See, crude oil is one of the largest components affecting gasoline prices, but it is not the only one. Refining capacity, transportation costs, regional supply, taxes, seasonal demand, and local market conditions all influence what you eventually pay at the pump. This creates a familiar economic phenomenon. When crude oil rises, gasoline prices appear to notice immediately. When crude oil falls, gasoline prices suddenly need several business days to process the paperwork. American households have already been dealing with the elevated costs across food, utilities, insurance, housing, and transportation. That means this story is about more than Wall Street. A sustained reduction in energy prices could lower transportation costs, reduce pressure on businesses, and eventually improve inflation expectations. But the key word here is sustained. One announcement does not permanently stabilize the oil markets. Iran continues to hold significant leverage because of the geographic position, regional relationships, and proximity to critical shipping routes. The situation could change again and quickly. So while investors may be celebrating today, families should remain cautious. This conflict is not necessarily over. The temperature has simply been lowered for now. Segment 3, massive Washington wildfires. We now turn to a rapidly developing emergency in the Pacific Northwest. Massive wildfires in eastern Washington have destroyed homes, threatened communities, and forced tens of thousands of residents to evacuate. Reports indicate that hundreds of structures have been damaged or destroyed, while approximately 60,000 people have faced displacement or evacuation orders. Videos showing the Washington wildfires are spreading rapidly across YouTube and social media. Some of the strongest performing wildfires coverage is receiving thousands of views every hour as people search for evacuation information, damage reports, and updates about affected communities. But behind every dramatic image is a family. A house is not simply a structure. It contains family photographs, important documents, children's belongings, personal memories, and years of work. When residents are told to evacuate, they may have only minutes to decide what they can carry and what they must leave behind. Emergency crews are operating under extraordinary, dangerous conditions. Dry vegetation, wind, extreme heat, and rapidly changing weather can transform a manageable fire into a major disaster with very little warnings. This is why evacuation orders must be taken seriously. If emergency officials tell residents to leave, that is not the moment to begin recording a 30-minute social media live stream titled, "Let's see how close the wildfire actually gets." Please leave. Take identification, necessary medication, water, essential documents, chargers, and emergency supplies. Make sure children, older relatives, and pets are accounted for. And do not wait until flames are visible from the front porch. This disaster also raises broader questions about emergency preparedness, infrastructures, land management, and the increasing frequency of destructive weather events. We've seen a lot in the last just 2 or 3 years. Regardless of where someone stands politically, fire does not ask for party registration before entering a neighborhood. These are moments when government agencies, nonprofit organizations, fire responders, and residents must work together. Our thoughts are with everyone affected and with the firefighters, emergency medical personnel, law enforcement officers, volunteers, and utility workers that are protecting these communities. Coming up, China may be changing the economics of artificial intelligence. Japan is recovering from a powerful earthquake. Dr. Anthony Fauci is facing new questions about the COVID-19 pandemic. And later, Spider-Man has accomplished something Congress has not, bringing millions of people together around the same subject. But first, if you enjoy independent news, thoughtful conversations, original programming, and analysis that goes beyond the headlines, visit dmestudios.net. That is dmestudios.net. Now, let's talk about the rapidly accelerating AI competition. Segment 4, China's AI price war. Artificial intelligence is becoming more powerful, but it is also becoming less expensive. Chinese technology companies, including Alibaba and DeepSeek, are introducing advanced AI models designed to compete with leading American systems. Alibaba has unveiled what it describes as its largest artificial intelligence model yet. DeepSeek is also attracting significant attention because of the reportedly low cost required to operate its newest technology. This could create what some observers are calling an AI price war. However, vidIQ's keyword research reveals something important. The phrase AI price war itself currently has limited direct search demand. The stronger viral search terms are AI news, DeepSeek, China AI, artificial intelligence, and open source AI. That tells us audiences are highly interested in the underlying story, even if they are not using the actual tool and what AI price wars describe it to be. So, what is actually happening? For the last several years, major American technology companies have spent enormous amounts of money building data centers, purchasing advanced chips, and developing increasingly powerful AI systems. The assumption was that the companies with the largest infrastructure and biggest budgets would maintain the strongest advantage. But if Chinese companies can produce competitive models at a substantially lower operating cost, that assumption could be challenged. If it would be like spending billions of dollars building the world's most advanced coffee machine and then discovering that someone else created a similar cup of coffee using a microwave and confidence. Lower AI costs could be positive for consumers and small businesses. More affordable models could give entrepreneurs, educators, creators, and local organizations access to capabilities that were previously limited to major corporations. But this development also increases pressure on the American companies. Investors are already asking whether the massive amount of money being spent on AI infrastructure will generate enough revenue and generate it quickly enough to justify the investment. There are also national security concerns. Artificial intelligence is no longer only a technology product. It influences cybersecurity, defense, manufacturing, finance, healthcare, communications, and scientific research. Whichever nation leads in AI could hold enormous economic and strategic advantages. That is why this competition is about much more than chatbots. It is about who builds the infrastructure, who establishes the standards, who controls the most powerful models, and who captures the economic benefits. For workers, the message is equally important. Artificial intelligence will continue changing how many jobs are performed. That does not mean every human worker disappears tomorrow. But it does mean that workers who understand how to use AI may gain an advantage over those who refuse to engage with it. The future will not necessarily belong to AI alone. It may belong to people who learn how to combine human judgment, creativity, communication, and experience with artificial intelligence. Use the tool. Do not surrender your thinking to it. Segment 5. Japan earthquake and tsunami warnings. A powerful magnitude 7.1 earthquake has struck Japan, causing significant shaking and triggering tsunami warnings. Security cameras and cell phone videos captured the moment buildings, stores, and public spaces began shaking. Some people were temporarily trapped inside shopping centers as emergency officials assessed the actual danger itself. Japan experiences earthquake regularly because of its location along several active tectonic plates. As a result, the country has developed some of the world's strongest earthquake resistance constructions, standards, emergency alert systems, and public preparedness programs. But even the most prepared nation cannot eliminate every risk associated with a major earthquake. When an earthquake occurs beneath or near the ocean, the movement of the sea floor can displace an enormous amount of water and potentially generate a tsunami. That is why coastal warnings may be issued even before authorities know whether a destructive wave will reach land. A warning does not mean officials are exaggerating. It means they are trying to move people before the full danger becomes visible. vidIQ data shows significant interest in this story. Japan earthquake has an estimated global search volume of approximately 268,000 searches per month. Japan earthquake today has particularly strong audience potential because it combines urgency with lower competition. And this week, videos covering the earthquake have accumulated hundreds of thousands and in some cases millions of views. But we should be careful with the disaster footage. Real emergency frequently attracts mislabeled videos, old footage, and computer-generated images presented as current events. Before sharing dramatic clips, check the original uploader, location, public date, and report it for credible news organization. Being first is exciting. Being accurate is more important.
Still marketing your business like it's the Yellow Pages era? Welcome to ME Studios, where local solopreneurs and small business owners catch up with the digital world and take over it. We help you go from invisible to undeniable. Featured on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Plus, gain press exposure in over 100 to 300 major media outlets like Fox, ABC, CBS, NBC, and the CW. Right here in Eatontown, New Jersey, just steps away from the soon-to-be Netflix studios, our multi-unit facility is built for creators, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. Stop marketing like it's 1995. Start building your digital authority today with a team that gets it.
Segment 6. RFK Jr., vaccines, and the measles outbreak. The United States is confronting its worst measles outbreak in decades. More than 2,300 cases have reportedly been recorded this year, created a renewed concern among doctors, public health officials, and parents. Health and Human Service Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is now urging parents to vaccinate their children against measles. That announcement is attracting attention because RFK Jr. has spent years questioning vaccine policies and challenging part of the medical establishment. But measles is highly contagious. The virus can spread through the air when an infected person coughs or sneezes, and it can remain in an enclosed space even after that individual has left it. It is not simply a harmless childhood rash. Measles can cause pneumonia, severe complications, hospitalization, and in rare cases, death. The measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, commonly known as the MMR vaccine, has been widely used to prevent the disease. Parents who have questions should specifically ask and directly talk to a qualified pediatrician or healthcare professional familiar with their child's medical history, not a random influencer, not someone's cousin who watched 3 videos, and definitely not a social media account with an American flag, 12 exclamation points, and the words, "They don't want us to know." Public health communication requires trust. That trust becomes harder to maintain when political messaging, scientific information, and online misinformation becomes mixed together. But protecting children should not become another partisan competition. Parents deserve accurate information, honest answers, and access to qualified medical care. The fact that RFK Jr. is now publicly encouraging measles vaccinations illustrates just how serious the current outbreak has become. And speaking of public trust and the pandemic, we now turn to one of the most controversial figures from the COVID-19 era. Segment 7, Fauci Pleads the Fifth. How did we get here? On July 29, 2026, Dr. Fauci appeared before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee after being subpoenaed to answer questions about the origins of COVID-19 and the government's response to the pandemic. But instead of providing the answers many Americans expected, Fauci invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. He reportedly declined to answer questions more than 100 times. That is a lot of Fifth Amendments. At some point, it stopped sounding like congressional testimony and started sounding like someone had accidentally placed the Constitution on repeat. Before anyone reaches to a conclusion, we need to understand what invoking the Fifth Amendment means. It is a constitutional right protecting individuals from being forced to provide testimony that could be the usage against them in a criminal case. Invoking is not by itself proof of guilt, but politically and publicly it raises obvious questions, particularly when the individual invoking it previously served as one of the country's most powerful and trusted public health official. So, how did we get here? Dr. Fauci served as a director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease from 1984 until 2022. During that extraordinary tenure, he advised multiple presidents and became one of America's most recognizable medical officials. Then COVID-19 emerged in late 2019. In January 2020, scientists and government officials began trying to determine whether the virus originated overseas in Wuhan or here, how it spread, and what should be done to contain it. Two major possibilities became the center of the debate. The first was natural transmission, that the virus moved from animals into humans. The second was a lab-related incident connected to the coronavirus research in Wuhan, China. For years, the lab leak possibility was frequently dismissed as a misinformation or conspiracy theory. Social media companies restricted some discussions of it. I remember I used to get myself always removed. News organizations sometimes treated it as a politically motivated speculation. But as additional information became public, several government agencies and intelligence officials concluded that a lab-related origin was at least plausible. The intelligence community has remained divided. However, and no definitive origin has been publicly established, the uncertainty is important. A theory became plausible does not automatically make every accusation attached to it to be true. But dismissing legitimate questions before the evidence has been fully examined also damages public trust. Another major issue involves American funding that reached the Wuhan Institute of Virology through the nonprofit organization EcoHealth Alliance. The argument centers on whether federally supported research constituted gain-of-function research experiments that can sometimes increase or alter characteristics of the pathogen to study how it may behave. Fauci previously told Congress that the National Institutes of Health did not fund gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab. Senator Rand Paul and other Republicans have repeatedly disputed that argument. The disagreement partly involves scientific definitions, grant oversight, and what government officials knew about the experiments being conducted. But it also involves something larger: accountability. Who approved the funding? How closely was the research monitored? Were government officials completely transparent with Congress? And did public health institutions suppress legitimate debate because they feared uncertainty would undermine compliance? President Joe Biden issued Fauci a broad, preemptive pardon before leaving office in January 2025, 2 days before he did. The pardon covered potential federal offenses connected to Fauci's public service dating back to 2014. That's telling. Fauci said he had committed no crime and that accepting the pardon should not be interpreted as an admission of guilt. But critics argue that the pardon only created more suspicion. And here's where the legal situation becomes complicated. Republican senators suggested that the pardon removed Fauci's potential criminal exposure and therefore weakened his reason for invoking the Fifth Amendment. Fauci's attorneys countered that senators had openly threatened prosecution and could use new testimony to pursue accusation of perjury or other offenses not protected by the earlier pardon. Senator Rand Paul has said the committee will vote on whether to hold Fauci in contempt of Congress. That does not automatically mean Fauci will be convicted of a crime. It means this political and legal battle is far from being over. Here's my position. We should not automatically declare Fauci guilty because he invoked a constitutional right. But we also should not pretend that refusing to answer more than 100 questions created public confidence. See, the American people lived through lockdowns, business closure, school disruption, vaccine mandates, job losses, isolation, and the death of more than 1 million people. Families were separated. Children experienced developmental and educational setbacks. Small businesses disappeared. Healthcare workers carried an unimaginable burden. People have a right to ask what happened. They have a right to know what research was funded, what information officials possessed, and whether political considerations influenced what the public was told. This should not become another competition between trust Fauci completely and Fauci personally created the pandemic. Those are slogans. We need evidence. We demand evidence. We demand transparency. And we need public health institutions capable of admitting mistakes without treating every question as an attack on science. Science is not damaged by questions. Science depends on them. I mean, that's the whole idea behind it. Question the data and develop better. From a crisis that transformed the entire world, we now turn to a humanitarian and political crisis unfolding in the country where I was born. This next story cuts deep.
Still marketing your business like it's the Yellow Pages era? Welcome to ME Studios, where local solopreneurs and small business owners catch up with the digital world and take over it. We help you go from invisible to undeniable. Featured on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Plus, gain press exposure in over 100 to 300 major media outlets like Fox, ABC, CBS, NBC, and the CW. Right here in Eatontown, New Jersey, just steps away from the soon-to-be Netflix studios, our multi-unit facility is built for creators, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. Stop marketing like it's 1995. Start building your digital authority today with a team that gets it.
Segment 8, Morocco, Ceuta, and the desperation behind the border. Tens of thousands of people have crossed from Morocco into Ceuta, the Spanish-controlled territory located on the northern coast of Africa. Reports estimate that approximately 50 to 60,000 people entered Ceuta by land and sea during the massive surge. Some climbed fences, some ran through border crossings, others attempted to swim around the barriers or navigate dangerous waters. Dozens of people reportedly died. Thousands became stranded in desperate conditions, and hundreds of unaccompanied minors entered an already overwhelmed reception system. Most of those who crossed have since returned to Morocco, while several thousands are believed to remain in Ceuta. And I want to address this story differently because, look, I was born in Morocco and many of you tagged me in the hundreds of videos that are out there. I was born in Casablanca. That's far from where everything happened. But I love my birth country. I love its people. I love its history, its culture, and the values that shaped who I am. But I also came to the United States of America for a reason. I came searching for opportunity. I came believing that hard work could produce a better future. And when I see people risking their lives to cross into Ceuta, I cannot simply reduce them to a political label. I do not support illegally storming a border. Absolutely not. And for everybody from my birth country, I mean, most that got in front of a microphone had Apple Watches and had iPhone 17s, and they're talking about how horrible things are. But you think the grass is greener on the other side, or the water is saltier on the other side, until you realize the truth. Every country has the right and the responsibility to protect its territory, enforce its laws, and maintain public safety. Now, this might not be popular for me to say at all, because Ceuta and Melilla are the smallest cities in the land of Morocco, but they're still controlled under the colonies of Spain. Ceuta's residents did not deserve to have their community overwhelmed overnight. But if we only call these people illegal migrants, we miss the deeper question. What makes tens of thousands of human beings believe that running into the ocean is safer than remaining where they are? People do not swim through dangerous waters because life is going wonderfully. They do it because desperation has defeated fear. Many of the migrants were reportedly Moroccan, while others had traveled from sub-Saharan Africa. Economic hardships, youth unemployment, limited opportunity, inequality, and years of migration pressure have created a population vulnerable to rumors and exploitation. Moroccan officials say human trafficking networks and social media misinformation helped trigger the surge. A Spanish court ruling was reportedly misrepresented online, creating the false impression that migrants entering Ceuta by sea could not be immediately returned. Smugglers and online accounts allegedly promoted the misunderstanding, but misinformation alone does not explain why tens of thousands of people were ready to act on it. A rumor may light a match. Desperation provides the fuel. Let me give you some history on Ceuta, because to understand this crisis, we also need to understand Ceuta itself, or as we say in Moroccan or Arabic, the spoken language of Morocco, Ceuta. So Ceuta sits on the African continent directly across the Strait of Gibraltar from mainland Spain. Spain has controlled the territory for centuries and considered it an integral part of Spanish state. Morocco disputes Spanish sovereignty over Ceuta and Melilla, another Spanish-controlled enclave in North Africa, and views the territories as remain symbols of European colonialism. Spain rejects that comparison. Madrid argues that Ceuta and Melilla are long-standing Spanish cities whose residents are Spanish citizens. This creates a geopolitical contradiction. Spain maintains territory on the African continent while criticizing Morocco's position regarding Western Sahara. Morocco claims sovereignty over Western Sahara and a disputed territory south of Morocco. The Polisario Front, supported by Algeria, seeks an independent Sahrawi state. That dispute has shaped Morocco's foreign policy for decades, and it's here that the United States and Israel enters the story. The U.S.-Israel-Morocco partnership. In December 2020, Morocco normalized diplomatic relationships with Israel under a U.S.-brokered agreement associated with the Abraham Accords. As part of that geopolitical arrangements, the Trump administration formally recognized Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara. In 2023, Israel also recognized Moroccan sovereignty over this disputed territory. The partnership has since expanded into trade, tourism, diplomacy, security, and military cooperation. For Morocco, international recognition of its position on Western Sahara represents a central foreign policy objective. For the United States, Morocco is an important security and diplomatic partner in North Africa. For Israel, normalized relationships with another Arab country expanded its regional legitimacy and strategic reach. Those are documented relationships. What is not established is that the United States, Israel, and Morocco jointly created and orchestrated the 2026 Ceuta migration surge. There's currently no verified evidence proving that theory at all, although it's all over social Some reporting indicates Spanish intelligence did not conclude that Morocco organized the search, although questions remain about whether border controls were relaxed or allowed to lapse during Morocco's Throne Day celebration. Morocco denies deliberately opening the border and blames misinformation and trafficking networks. That distinction matters. Scrutiny is appropriate. Certainty without evidence is not, though. But the absence of proof of a coordinated operation does not mean the geopolitical partnership should be immune from examination. We should ask whether these international agreements have improved life for ordinary Moroccans, have increased security partnerships, produced increased economic opportunities, have major diplomatic victories benefited unemployed youth that are in Casablanca, in Tangier, in Tetuan, and other communities. Has military and intelligence cooperation received greater priority than housing, education, unemployment, and social mobility? And have Western governments treated Morocco mainly as a security barrier responsible for preventing African migration from reaching Europe? Because if Europe pays Morocco to control migration, but underlying economic desperation continues growing, then the policy is not resolving the problem. It's outsourcing the border. Migration as a diplomatic leverage. That's another talking point. There's also historical reason to examine Morocco's border enforcement decisions. In 2024, thousands of people entered Ceuta during a serious diplomatic dispute between Morocco and Spain. Spain had allowed Brahim Ghali, a leader of the Polisario Front, to enter the country for medical treatment. Morocco reacted angrily, and broader enforcement appeared to relax during the dispute. Reporting at the time indicated that U.S. recognition of Morocco's Western Sahara claim has emboldened Rabat to adopt a stronger position toward European governments. That history does not prove Morocco engineered the 2026 crossing, but it demonstrates that migration and border enforcement have previously become connected to diplomatic pressure. This is why an independent investigation is necessary. Not a Spanish investigation designed simply to blame Morocco, not a Moroccan investigation designed to simply clear Morocco, and not a political narrative constructed in Washington, Jerusalem, or Brussels. We need an honest accounting of what officials knew, whether enforcement was intentionally reduced, how online rumors spread, and whether trafficking organizations coordinated the movement of people. Most importantly, we need to hear from the migrants themselves. Look, I'm going to give you my personal message. As a Moroccan immigrant and proud naturalized United States citizen, I understand the desire to search for a better life. I boarded an airplane. Many of these people entered the sea. Our methods were different, but perhaps some of our hopes were the same: a stable future, a meaningful career, an opportunity to provide for our family, a belief that tomorrow could be better than today. Recognizing that humanity does not mean supporting open borders. Compassion and enforcement can't exist together. Spain has a right to secure Ceuta. Morocco has a responsibility to control its side of the border. Traffickers must be persecuted. Misinformation must be confronted. But walls, soldiers, and floating barriers cannot be the entire solution. If young people believe they must escape their homeland to build a future, then political leaders must ask what has failed at home. Morocco has secured influential international partners. It has received support from the United States and Israel on Western Sahara. It has expanded its diplomatic importance. It is a much wealthier country than it was when I was there back in before 2002. Now, that international influence must be translated into opportunity for the Moroccan people. A nation's strength cannot be measured by the military cooperation, diplomatic recognition, or royal celebrations. It must also be measured by whether an ordinary young person believes they can build a dignified life without risking death to reach another country. That is the real story of Ceuta, not simply an invasion, not an unproven conspiracy, and not merely a border failure. It is a humanitarian tragedy, a security crisis, and a warning about what happens when political partnerships advance faster than the lives of the people they're supposed to serve. After two extremely serious stories involving international trust, international politics, and human desperation, we're going to close with something lighter. Because if Dr. Fauci will not answer the questions, Morocco and Spain cannot agree on the border, and world leaders cannot solve international migration, perhaps, just perhaps, it's time for Spider-Man. Segment 9, Spider-Man. Spider-Man, yeah, he took over the internet. All right, so Spider-Man Brand New Day is dominating online conversations, YouTube searches, and entertainment coverages. According to vidIQ, Spider-Man Brand New Day has exceptionally high search volume. With more than 2 million estimated monthly searches globally, Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer is also generating enormous interest, including more than 100,000 estimated monthly searches in the United States alone. One related video has surpassed 9 million views while performing hundreds of times better than channels with typical content. That is not merely an outlier. That is the algorithm standing on the table and screaming. Videos discussing the movie's ending, post-credit scenes, Easter eggs, and future Marvel connections are attracting tens of thousands of views per hour. Tom Holland remains a major search driver. Marvel Studios remain a major search driver, and audiences are once again analyzing every frame as if the future of civilization depends on discovering which blurry character appeared behind Peter Parker for a half a second. There are congressional investigations with less frame-by-frame analysis. Part of Spider-Man's enduring appeal is that Peter Parker is not a descendant billionaire or an invincible alien. He is a young person trying to balance responsibility, relationships, work, financial pressure, and enormous expectations. Basically, Peter Parker is every American except he can climb the wall when the rent is due. The movie's success is also encouraging for theaters. Audiences may have more entertainment options than ever before, but major shared culture events can still bring people together. That does not mean every film will become a blockbuster. It means people will still leave the house when studios give them something they genuinely want to experience together. And apparently, what they want is Spider-Man nostalgia and 17 post-credit scenes explaining the next 8 movies. Please, Marvel. All right, so when we look at all of these stories all together, a larger pattern appears. A decision in Washington can move oil prices around the world. A disruption in the Strait of Hormuz can affect what American families pay at the pump. A wildfire can displace an entire community in minutes. An earthquake in Japan can capture global attention almost instantly. A new Chinese AI model can force American technology companies to reconsider billions of dollars in investments. A measles outbreak can reopen national debates about science, trust, and public health. A congressional hearing can reveal how many questions remain unanswered about a pandemic that transformed our lives forever. A mass border crossing in Morocco can expose the divide between international diplomacy and the everyday reality of the people that are desperately searching for opportunity. And a fictional superhero can still give millions of people a reason to sit in the same room and share an experience. The world is deeply connected. The challenge is determining which stories actually matter, which headlines are exaggerated, and how each development could affect our everyday lives. That is why we're here. That's what we try to do. We do not only tell what happened, we ask why it happened, who it benefits, who pays the price, what could happen next, and why should you and I care? If you enjoyed this mega episode, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who wants the news without all the unnecessary screaming. Then visit themestudios.net to discover more original shows, interviews, independent reportings, and opportunities to work with ME Studios. That's themestudios.net. At ME Studios, we do more than follow conversations. We create them. My name is Ali Mehdaoui. This has been What's New with ME. Stay informed, stay engaged, and remember, if the politicians, oil markets, artificial intelligence, congressional hearings, border crisis, and earthquakes do not keep us busy, Marvel will. I'll see you in the next episode.
Still marketing your business like it's the Yellow Pages era? Welcome to ME Studios, where local solopreneurs and small business owners catch up with the digital world and take over it. We help you go from invisible to undeniable. Featured on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Plus, gain press exposure in over 100 to 300 major media outlets like Fox, ABC, CBS, NBC, and the CW. Right here in Eatontown, New Jersey, just steps away from the soon-to-be Netflix studios, our multi-unit facility is built for creators, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. Stop marketing like it's 1995. Start building your digital authority today, with a team that gets it.